Is the science victory too easy, or is this leader civ combo too strong? I'm on the hunt to find the greatest and most broken leader civ combo that is also fun to play to help me on my quest of taking on deity difficulty. But who was it that I picked? Let's dive in and see just how broken this science victory is. So our leader of choice for science will be Benjamin Franklin, with some insane bonuses such as a +1 science per age on production buildings inside of cities. And production is going to be important for getting our science buildings, the aerodrome and the launch pad online as soon as possible. And for the bonus I'm most interested in testing, he is allowed 2 endeavours of the same kind at the same time whilst gaining +1 science per age from each active endeavour that I start or support. So once we're all set up and ready in the modern age, I want to see how high we can take that. Pairing this with our 2 mementos, the walking stick for +1 science per age on military buildings, and Key M for +1 science for every commander level, it's time to choose our civ. The obvious pick here is the Mayans, with their palace gaining 0.5 science for adjacent vegetated terrain, and one of their incredible unique buildings, the Kunar, supplying our city with 3 science, followed by an extra 2 if on vegetation, hopefully giving us a great chance at rushing through the tech trees throughout every age. As asked in our previous video testing out Charlemagne, we will be playing online speed on sovereign difficulty. Now go easy on me, I'm trying to work myself up the ladder. But if you've played this combo, let me know what turn you got the science victory and what difficulty you were on. But anyway, let's see how I manage this. And so we settled our capital back, with some pearls for happiness, kaolin for food, and some silk for culture. But sadly no incense for the extra science boost just yet. Up first of course, we sent out our first Jaguar Scout, a great starting unit as these can actually attack, unlike normal scouts used by all other civs, and we began to research pottery, rushing towards that library. A second Jaguar Scout was made as we took some culture from some ruins, before slotting in our first social policy, giving us an extra production and science in our palace. It wasn't too long before we were already researching writing and our civic for the Kunar, which I actually want to place first, as this could net us more science quicker with the vegetated land in our city. Oligarchy was and always will be my first choice here for the Antiquity Age celebration for that extra growth, gearing us up ready for the later ages, so we took that before bumping into our first leader, Lafayette, as we sent him a local festival to keep him happy for now. As we started making another settler, writing was done, and so we jumped straight on to Writing Plus for that first codex and the extra science on all science buildings. One thing that wasn't going as well was the sheer amount of angry independent towns there were, wiping out both of my scouts and leaving me with no vision and without an army. I felt there was no reason to make any more and just hoped I would be safe in my corner of the world. Despite this, we finally started to build our Kunar, as we also got another codex as our empire celebrated, giving me that 20% extra food before slotting in another social policy, giving us +1 science on vegetated terrain. As I feared though, the independents moved in, forcing me to purchase a warrior in the hopes of not losing my capital. But on the plus side, we got our first scientific attribute point, adding more science to our palace before purchasing some Hulchi to help defend more, adding in some range to our arsenal. Whilst defending some more, I started building our Jalor to complete the unique district for some bonuses, until finally getting some incense for the extra 10% of science in the city it's placed, taken with my new fishing town of Kapan. As we continued the fight down south, our general gained their first promotion, adding that extra science thanks to our memento, before forming an alliance with Lafayette, which means he's going to be friendly the whole time, right? But that did give us a diplomatic point, putting that in for more happiness whilst gaining another codex once completing our unique district, plus another scientific point and another level on my commander, and as things began to ramp up, all our gold was currently being spent on more units to help defend against the onslaught. But with more units fighting, we were getting more and more commander promotions, meaning more science. We were doing well, holding them back before taking the fight to them as we stormed the grounds hoping to take out Nukaleka. Mathematics was being researched now, and finally we took down the Independents as our commander gained his first commendation, adding 5 combat strength to anything in his aura. With less issues now, I came across Himiko, yet again offering another local festival, but now, to make things worse, another independent town began to troll me, keeping a galley sat exactly where I was trying to build my lighthouse. And honestly, this was highly frustrating, and so I created more settlers while awaiting the galley to be destroyed by my hulchers. The town of Uxmal was now down, and Mathematics was now complete, as we of course went for the Mathematics Plus for those 2 extra codices. Eventually, the galley was sunk as we placed down our future city, Koba, for the library in order for us to place more codices in my empire to hit the 10 we needed to complete the scientific legacy points. Seeing how obviously great this empire was, Himiko asked for an alliance right before the crisis came in, trying to eat away at our happiness, but we were doing okay for now. Ashoka was met not long after, which was just in time for him to witness the great Colosseum being built in my capital, and the town of Koba to grow into a city, placing down a library and academy before finally researching the future tech as I had run out of text to research. Not too long after, the people of Sapara asked to join me, and of course, I accepted before placing down Tikal and finally Yaxchilan, whilst fending off more galleys and dispersing their lesser town. As the age was coming to an end, I slotted in all of the codices I could, completing that legacy path, and with that, the Antiquity Age ended with a respectable 146 science per turn. But with a mediocre first age, we progressed into the Age of Exploration as our new civilization, Ming. These offer a great bonus of 50% science in the capital, however, minus 15 science per turn for every policy slot I have filled, which doesn't sound the best, but as we weren't pushing culture, we shouldn't have too many of those. Plus, they have some fun gold bonuses and you can't go wrong with gold. For the legacies, we took an expansionist point, a diplomatic point, an economist point, and an extra 15% science at the cost of 10% culture, as well as the Golden Age Academy, plus of course an extra science point to finish things off. And now as the age began, we of course took feudal monarchy for that 20% extra food during celebrations, and got straight in cartography to settle in the distant lands as soon as possible. It only took us 10 turns to place down our first town, already taking a treasure fleet resource before gaining yet another scientific attribute point. And it was then that Augustus sailed over to us, and we of course offered a local festival, and we were already looking great at 232 science per turn after moving around some social policies before once again forming another alliance with Himiko. Feeling confident now, we were researching education by just turn 17, and our first treasure fleet had arrived. But at the height of our empire, others began to get jealous. However, I reject your denouncement, sir. Not today. Another economic point later, and we were already speeding through the tech tree, but trying to hold us back, Abolessa attempted storming through our lands, as we had to fight back and defend our towns. As the distant lands were unaware of this mini war, they sent out more treasure fleets as we met the one and only Jose Rizal, and his influence pushed our units forward, wiping out these independent people. This, however, sparked rage amongst our entire continent as Ashoka and Lafayette declared war on me, as it was now both of them against us and Himiko, which, luckily, although I had not prepared for, I did have plenty of gold to buy units, starting with the mass cavalry. This war raged on, and each side were losing a lot of units, and for no other reason than me just liking big things, we began building Machu Picchu. But I slowly realized that I was not ready for this war, and it was taking a toll on my empire as they were pushing in and threatening my towns and cities. Throughout all of this bloodshed though, we did get Machu Picchu built to at least hide on top of if all goes wrong. However, Himiko really was the difference in me winning this war or losing it, as they sent in so many units to help me defend. But despite the raging war, we were still looking great at 391 science per turn after some more policy changes, and the treasure fleets continued to come. As the war continued to tear through my lands, my commander was leveling up throughout, and we were able to push into Ahsoka's territory, and our tech tree only contained masteries, which were only taking a turn to complete, so we were looking great to start the final age, as long as we could hold back. But as I felt that things were under control now, I began to build the Forbidden City, but we were struggling to push more as they were relentless, sending cavalries behind to my towns that I needed to get back and defend. Eventually though, we were able to take out Kosambi, and peace with Ahsoka was established. So now we had to push north to force Lafayette to settle peace, and only 42 turns in, we only had the future civics left to research, which was no good really, as we needed to try and finish more legacy points, as I always struggle getting 40 yields on 5 urban districts, and I'm not too sure why, so if you can help me here, any help would be appreciated. The fight continued on, and we both could see we were losing more than we could sustain, and so we settled peace, giving us a scientific attribute point, adding on plus 5% science per turn, and as this is repeatable, let's see how many times we can do this. The crisis had now started, however, and we were on a push to earn the last legacy point for science, so in order to do this, I needed to get my cities to grow to slot in more specialists. Another point got added into our science, giving us another 5%, just before our treasure fleet came in, completing at least that path. However, soon after, the exploration age ended, and I did not make the cut for the scientific golden age. But with the modern age incoming, it was now time to see how silly we could make this, using as much diplomacy as I could to push it further and send our rocket to space as quickly as possible. And for the civilization, we will be doing this with America, as none of the ones I had unlocked really fit too well, and the extra production may help me here and there. As for the legacy points though, we took cities from the previous age staying as a city, an economic point, 3 science per turn on quarters, and a scientific attribute point. And for our golden ages here, I picked the Elective Republic for that extra 20% science, starting off by researching academics, and after slotting in our social policies, we are starting turn 1 of the modern age with a nice hefty 247 science. With all that science, it wasn't long before our schoolhouses were being built up, and with our first celebration, we were now at 348 science per turn. On top of that, I began with my first hub town to increase the influence per turn, and not long after, 2 more hub towns followed, as Electricity 2 was now being researched for even more science. Laboratories were building up and things were moving really fast, as I wanted to make sure we kept on top of everything, just in case another war happened, which would set me back again. But just in case that did happen, I allianced with Himiko again, as both Oxford University and the Red Fort had been built, pushing us further towards our victory, and on turn 22, flight had been researched. Plus another scientific point for another extra 5% science per turn, leaving us for now at 499. With flight done, the aerodromes were being built up, and now came the time that I felt like testing out my diplomacy strategy, which, after a lot of festivals, open borders, and anything else I could beg them for, we were sitting on 617 science per turn, with some nice yields in the city, before starting the transatlantic flight. Not long after, we had completed it though, and we were now researching aerodynamics, which only took us a total of 4 turns. However, to complete the actual breaking the sound barrier, it would only take me 1 turn, and as rocketry was only 6 turns away, we were 2/3 through our first set of objectives, and making good time too. Rather insanely though, we built the Statue of Liberty in 1 turn, granting us a horde of migrants to grow our cities and towns, and as rocketry had now been completed, I purchased the launch pads, and it would only be 6 turns until we were able to launch a satellite. Although I didn't need to now, I felt it would be fun to do a lot more diplomacy and see how high we can get it now, bearing in mind we are on online speed, and we were now at 750 science per turn, which is pretty insane I think. But as the satellite went up, we were now only 9 turns away from completing our staff space flight. These next few turns went quickly, however on the turn before we had completed this project, Himiko went to war, and knowing we were leaving this Earth, I called our alliance off as we peaced out, rising up in our spacecraft, and on turn 53, completing the science victory and feeling pretty strong honestly, as no one else was anywhere near any kind of victory. So that is it for this one. However, if there's any combinations or challenges you think I should try out, then please let me know. We have more Civilization 7 content on the channel, so please go and check that out. Like this video to help me out and subscribe so you don't miss any more of the content, and I will catch you all in the next one.